Hey friends, today I'm responding to a challenge I received from a viewer. Alicia said, I'd like to challenge you to a 2-day $5 WinCo challenge using bulk and produce sections only. And she says, I can only use oil, butter, salt, and pepper from my own pantry. Any additional spices must come from the WinCo bulk seasoning section. So just to recap, I need to create 6 meals with $5. Let's get started. I usually try to shop as early as possible to avoid the crowds, but that just didn't work out for me this day. So I ended up shopping midday and it was very crowded. So I'm actually not going to show too many scenes of this. However, I did want to show you some of the pricing and then I'll do a recap of everything I purchased at home. I spotted this protein pancake mix and I thought that was a really great idea for some breakfasts. I wasn't sure how much this was going to cost, so I thought also about maybe supplementing with a little bit of the regular pancake mix. And then I was kind of looking at the different pastas that they had, and some of them were higher than others. I kind of like the fusilli, but at $1.48, I was thinking maybe I should get one of the less expensive ones. I also thought the rigatoni looked really good, and these do have a little bit of protein in them. The cavatapi was $1.28, which is a little bit less. And then the least expensive of the pastas was, of course, the spaghetti, and that was at 90 cents. So I'm definitely going to pick up some of that as well. They had quite a few different spices, and of course, as usual, I'm never sure how much it's going to cost. I also noticed that they had some nutritional yeast, which I was excited about because that'll add some nutrition. And I also picked up a zucchini. I picked up a clove of garlic, but then I was thinking I was going to be over budget. I did have somebody with me on this shopping trip, and I do think it was throwing me off a bit. But anyway, let's get back home and I'll show you what I got. I have spaghetti, and I'm hoping that this is going to be enough for maybe 2 meals or 1.5. And I got this cavatapi, which I'll use for 1 meal. I have rice. I have the TVP, which is the textured vegetable protein. And sometimes when I do these challenges at WinCo, people say, why all the plastic? Well, the reason is because that's how you have to purchase the items. You can't bring your own container, obviously, because then how would the clerk know how much your container weighed? So you have to use these little bags. Anyway, I have the protein pancakes, and I also have the buttermilk, which is the smaller. I have a banana, 2 tomatoes. I have this taco seasoning, which is a mix of all of the spices that I love. I have some brown sugar. I have this small amount of nutritional yeast just to add some savory seasoning flavor along with some added nutrition. And then I have some garlic powder. And this ended up being $4.34. Unfortunately, I was way under budget, which I did realize when I went back to my car, but I just did not feel like going back in the store. So I ended up adding this Hothouse tomato. That was, let's see, that was, how much was that? Okay, that was 65 cents. I just pulled that out of the other groceries that I got at WinCo, and then I ended up being at just under $5. For my 2 breakfast meals, I'll be making protein pancakes with a banana topping, and I've got a little bit of the brown sugar. So I have the protein pancake batter, and I also have the buttermilk, and I'm just going to mix them but I was curious how much I had in these bags, and it looks like I had about 1 cup total of the protein pancakes and about a half cup of the buttermilk. And I looked online and it said about a 1/4 cup water to every half cup of mix. However, I kept adding it in and it did seem awfully thick to me, so I did end up adding a little more in there, but I think my first pancakes were maybe still a little too thick. And I noticed when I was stirring this that I could smell the cinnamon in this mix. So the protein mix definitely had some kind of its own seasoning, but I don't think the buttermilk one did. Okay, now I'm going to make the banana sauce to go over the pancakes. And for this, I'm going to start by adding a little butter to the pan. Since I'm able to use butter in this challenge, I might as well use it here because it's definitely going to make a delicious sauce. I'm just going to add some brown sugar to this and then some sliced bananas, and it will be delicious on top of those pancakes. And I guess I should hold back a few of these bananas just to add to the topping to make it look a little bit better, because these will get kind of mushy in here. In fact, if I would have been doing this correctly, I would have made the sauce first and then a few minutes later added in the bananas at the very end so that they would have held their form and looked just like this when I plated them. I also added just a touch of salt, just gives it that little something extra. Had I been using salted butter, then I wouldn't have needed to do that. And I just have to say, these smell amazing. Whatever seasonings they use in these are really great. You know, I think this is the first time I've ever made regular pancakes on my channel before. I've made oatmeal pancakes, but I don't think I've ever made regular pancakes, probably because I just don't eat them. But these smell good, and I'm actually really looking forward to this. And I did add a small amount of water, just a touch to loosen up the sauce a little bit. Here it is. And like when I made the strawberry sauce for the samosas, and then I added just a few fresh strawberries in at the end, that's basically what I should have done here, just so that I had more attractive bananas. But that's something that you remember when you make a dish more frequently. And I always kind of forget. So my bananas looked a little cooked to smithereens. However, they are absolutely delicious. They're caramelized and they're sweet and just a touch of saltiness in there. And by the way, that strawberry sauce would have been really good on these also. This is definitely a luxurious tasting breakfast. And I like the fact that it has protein. For the second breakfast, I decided to try to heat up the pancakes in the toaster oven, and I just sliced the rest of the banana, added some pats of butter along with some brown sugar, and added it to the toaster oven. However, the bananas weren't as delicious as they were when I pan fried them. For my first lunch, I thought I'd make a savory rice dish, and for my protein, I'll use this textured vegetable protein. I've got some taco seasoning, I've got a tomato, and for the rice, it looks like I have about a cup of rice, so I should be able to get about 3 cups of cooked rice. And I'll use about 1/3 of my zucchini. I'm gonna have plenty of rice left over for another meal. And I think the last time I used this TVP, I made a brown gravy to go with it and serve that over some rice, but you could serve it over noodles as well. My only concern for this dish was that it might be a little bit dry, which was why I tried to keep some water content into those vegetables and not overcook them. And this actually turned out really good. This is a great meal with two very inexpensive pantry staples like rice and textured vegetable protein. For a healthier route, it might be interesting to try to crisp up that TVP in the toaster oven. For my second lunch, I thought I would try to make a spaghetti with like a ground beef and marinara, except I'll be using this TVP that I have left over. I have some garlic powder, and for tomatoes, I have the 1.5 tomatoes, but I also have this other tomato if I need to cut into that. And I'm not going to be able to make a super rich, thick marinara. However, I am going to be able to get a robust tomato flavor out of just the tomatoes that I have. And I added a little water to add to this because I am going to be simmering this for a good long while. I should have picked up some Italian seasoning, but I thought it was going to be over budget for some reason. But that's fine because spices are accessories. And the real star of the show are these tomatoes. I am going to add just a touch of brown sugar just to add a hint of sweetness. And I also did add some salt, but for some reason I don't have it on the video. I also added a little oil in because I am allowed to use oil in this challenge. And that is obviously olive oil, but you can use whatever you have. The cost of olive oil has really gone up lately, so I've actually been really limiting my use of it. And of course I salted my water to boil the pasta in, and this actually wasn't enough, so I had to add some more salt in. Sometimes I'll taste the water to see if it's at the level of saltiness that I want, because that salt water is going to permeate the noodles and then they're going to come out perfectly seasoned. If you don't salt the water, then it tends to end in some bland noodles. So salting the water makes a huge difference. And I wish you could taste this tomato sauce because I don't think you would believe how delicious it is with just those few simple ingredients. I would probably prefer my spaghetti with just a little bit of that tomato sauce on there. I'm not one that usually likes to eat the vegan crumbles or even ground beef with marinara. I just usually really like just a few vegetables or a light sauce, and I think that marinara would just really fit the bill for me. I did decide that I needed a little more marinara, so I blended up a little more of the tomato and added some of the pasta sauce in with some more seasonings, and then let this simmer for a little while until this pasta was done. And I also added some pepper. The consistency of this is looking just about right. And this is all of the spaghetti. I just made it all together, and I know you can't tell on camera, but this is actually a huge bowl. So I think I'm going to be able to get 2 servings out of this spaghetti, which is nice because I was a little bit afraid that I wasn't going to have enough food in this challenge. But since I'm going to have that rice left over, and I've got half of the spaghetti left over, and I still do have that other pasta that I purchased, I think we're going to be in good shape. I think if I was a mom that was still cooking for kids, I would probably get some of this TVP and use half TVP and half ground beef and serve this to my family, and the family would never know that you even had that in there, but it would lessen the cost on the ground beef and it would make it go further. That is only if you can find TVP and it's affordable for you. For me, I was able to get this at WinCo. It was less than $1. So I think it just depends on what you're able to find where you live. And I did add some more pepper to this. I really enjoyed this. I thought it had a really great tomato flavor. Yeah, I thought it was good. It was actually much better than I thought it was going to be. I gave this about an 8. For my first dinner, I'll be using the leftover spaghetti, and I'll be using the garlic powder and some oil and salt and pepper. While my vegetables are cooking, I'm going to go ahead and boil my pasta for the second dinner. And this is the cavatapi that I got earlier, and I boiled this in heavily salted water. To my vegetables, I added the garlic powder. I also added in some salt and some pepper. I frequently make a similar meal to this, but I don't use butter, so if you don't have butter, don't worry about it. It's still going to be delicious. Here I'm adding just a little bit of the starchy pasta water. It's going to help make a sauce to coat these noodles. And this is so simple, but yet it is so delicious. I could eat this every day. And for the last dinner, I basically made it a very similar way, except I did cut up my zucchini a little bit different. I added the garlic powder, I added the salt and pepper, and then I added a little bit more of the pasta water. And this time I added in the nutritional yeast that I got from WinCo, and it's going to make a savory base for the pasta, and it's also going to season these vegetables, and it's also going to add some nutrition to this. So I added in my al dente pasta, and I'm just going to let this cook for a little bit, and then this is going to be my dinner for tomorrow night. This has such a good flavor. I love everything about this dish. Normally I would fold in some spinach at the end, maybe add some olives, and also some mozzarella would be really delicious in this. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you liked today's video. I'll see you Sunday.
Morning has broken, my windows are open. Wanna feel the wind blow through my hair. Which way do I follow? What happens tomorrow? I turn to you and hope you can guide the way.